I recently audited 20 coaching profiles. Some had 500 followers, some had over 50,000, some had years of experience, and some were relatively new. But almost all of them were making the same four mistakes. Mistakes that make it incredibly difficult for people to trust them, remember them, and ultimately buy from them. Most of these coaches were doing exactly what you expect them to do. They were showing up, they were posting consistently, they were sharing value, but none of that was turning attention into inquiries. So when I audited these profiles, I wasn't looking for perfect branding or fancy graphics. I was trying to answer one simple question. If I landed on this profile for the first time as a visitor, would I understand what they do, who they serve, and why I should care? In most cases, the answer was no, and this first mistake was the most common by far. Now, the first mistake that people were making were with the bios that sounded great on paper, but actually communicate nothing. If you're using terms such as unlock your potential or mindset coach, anything like that, they're so broad is that nobody knows whether it's actually for a specific person. They don't know that it's actually directed towards them. So what you end up with is a vague profile. This makes confusion and ultimately leads to no action. People just literally don't know it's for them, so they're not going to actually start acting on it from that standpoint at the end of the day. What you need to do is be much more direct, much more clear in the way you're actually writing your bio. You've only got a few characters to do it, so you need to be very, very specific. The best thing to do is do it in this way instead, which is talk about the problem that the person has. Actually call out the problem that you do solve for people. Then also be clear about what kind of person you help. Who is the actual person? Don't be vague. Don't be unclear. You can get very targeted with this. Most people worry that they're limiting the amount of people they will be actually reaching, but the more targeted you get, the better the results you will get. The next part we talk about is the outcome. What results can they expect while working with you? What transformation are you going to bring them? What is it that you're actually going to bring to them? Once you do those points, then you get interest. So the bio needs to be crafted around these 3 points: problem, person, outcome. Once you've got that, then it starts getting a lot more interesting to the person who you're actually looking for in the first place. It's worth remembering that people won't hire you just because you're necessarily certified. They're hiring you because they believe that you can solve their specific problem. Now, once I looked at this and saw the weak bios, I assumed that was the biggest problem people were having. But then we moved on to content. And as at this point, I found something very interesting, because most people had a problem with not a volume of content, but the type of content they were posting. And a lot of coaches and a lot of people will do the same thing. They'll post lots of tips, lots of advice, lots of generic content and information that people can just consume and then leave. That is the problem that you have. It doesn't drive the action. So what you get is people posting lots of tips, lots of just value, whatever form that comes in, and lots of generic information. That doesn't position you in any way as an expert, it just positions you as a free resource. So likewise with the bio, we need to flip this around a little bit. Your content needs to become a lot more specific. And what we will do is, again, we talk about the problem. Be very clear about the problem that you help people solve. So people who actually have that problem know that the content and your solutions and your offers is actually for them. Next, we're going to bring into your content some belief shifts. Now, this helps people make a much more informed decision. It helps you change the perspective and the way that they're actually viewing their problem. People won't buy from you if you're just providing free information. We've established that already. They will buy from somebody who challenges their assumptions, somebody who leads them to a new way of thinking. And you do that with your own unique perspective. And by doing this, you're creating a tension between what they believe now and what they need to get the result. And once again, people won't buy the person who teaches the most, they will buy the one whose thinking makes the most sense. Now, it's during this point in the audit that I thought that obviously content is going to be the biggest problem. But when I moved on to the next section, this was where I found the biggest leak. Now, the biggest problem I saw with all of the accounts I audited was that there was no path from the content to the offer. This is a huge problem for a lot of people, and there is no way that takes the content. So you've got this great piece of content, there is nothing to take it to the offer. There is no tie-in, there is no bridge from one to the other. And this is something I see time and time again on accounts that are generally set up very well. It's obvious that the person has a lot of skill, they have a lot of expertise, a lot of authority in some cases as well, but there is no tie-in between the content that they post and the offer that they actually sell. You know it's a problem when somebody can consume your content for weeks and weeks and weeks and still have no idea what you offer. And this one is essentially quite an easy fix, because you have the post, the content itself, make sure there's a CTA on it, and make sure that you're trying to start conversations with people, and then that will eventually lead to clients. What it is that your content is just a vehicle at the end of the day. You're trying to get people aware of what it is that you do. This is what your content is designed to do. You can do that by speaking about the problem, speaking about how you help them, and all these things are very good. But if there's no tie-in to the next step, which is your offer, then you're wasting your chance to get people to actually reach out to you. It's something that is quite common, as I said before. And if you're struggling with this, and I talked about this in a previous video, if you're struggling to get this set up in your content, what you need to do is literally start with the offer and work backwards. Start with the offer, saying the last slide on your carousel or the last part of your reel needs to say, this is how you work with me, or this is the offer I have at the moment, and it needs to be on every single post. You're not necessarily directly selling every time, but you're making people aware that you do have offers, that you do have solutions to the problem that you've just been talking about in the post. Then you go back through the post and make sure that the problem is there, the journey you take somebody on, what they can expect and what transformation they will get. And then the next step is a very easy one of, this is how, if you want to solve this problem, this is how you work with me. It's really quite simple, but a lot of people overlook it, or they're not doing it enough. They're not putting it in their stories enough. They're not making Instagram stories, for example, with dedicated selling in them, where you're trying to actually directly get people to reach out to you. You're not putting it on the CTAs of your reels and your carousels. You're not making it very clear that you actually have offers. You need people to be seeing these CTAs all the time. A lot of the time they won't even notice, but when it gets to the point that they're starting to think about solving this problem that you keep talking about, which is a problem that's keeping them up at night, they will start to have that recognition between your content that made them think about things a little bit differently if you've been using your belief shifts, and there'll be a recognition that you have an offer that can fix it, because you're always putting it on your content that you have done this for people just like them. At the end of the day, content isn't the business. Content supports the business. There needs to be a bridge between the two. If you want to think of it in easier terms, every piece of content should either build trust, create demand, or get them to take the next step. Fourth problem that I saw on a lot of these profiles that I audited was the highlights. Now, the highlights are vastly underrated, in my opinion. You really need to start thinking of it as a mini website. Think of it as a place where people can find out more about you and your business. When people are coming in and they're going to be hiring you or thinking of hiring you, you've already built trust with your content, they liked your bio, they've gone through a load of posts and they're really getting interested in working with you. Chances are they're going to want to look at those highlights. A lot of people make the mistake of using the highlights as a dumping ground for all types of things. There'll be random content in there, personal photos, maybe your holiday from 2022, and in a lot of cases outdated information because people just dump stuff in there, forget about it, and just carry on. If you're doing that, you're missing a trick, because this is a really important place that people will be going to look at stuff before making that final hiring decision. So you need to have things like work with me, start here, something about all your client wins, so there'll be your testimonials and reviews and things like that. Social proof, so they actually know that you've helped people before and helped people just like them. And at the end of the day, how they can work with you. There needs to be just a clear path of what they need to know. As I said before, think of it like a mini website or even as an onboarding sequence. It's something where people can literally go through, just look at what they need to know, pick out the relevant information that they actually want, and actually know what to do next. And then they got all the information, what offers you've got, how you've helped people before, how they need to reach out to work with you. It really needs to be as simple and streamlined as that. Now, I think what it all came back to when I sat back and had to think about all these mistakes that I was seeing was that a lot of people tend to create the profile through their own eyes. They are assuming that everybody else has the same context, but they don't. You know about all your years of experience, you know about how many clients you've helped, you know about what actual problems you solve on a daily basis. But somebody coming in and seeing you for the first time, they have none of that context. They don't know you from Adam. They just see your bio at the top, a handful of posts, and they got about 8 seconds that they're going to spend before they decide whether you're somebody worth following and maybe worth working with in the future. That's a lot to actually ask your profile to do, but if you set it up the right way, then at least it buys you a little bit of time past the 8 seconds, so they start to think, this is interesting, I might need to look and investigate this person a little bit further. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, this could be me, chances are it probably is, because most of the profiles I audited had at least 2 of these problems. And if today's video made you realise that followers aren't the thing that's holding you back, go and watch this next video here, which explains why 500 buyers will outperform 50,000 followers every single time. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you on the next one.